Hello, everyone. My name is Lauren Antone, and I'm the Senior Marketing and Events Coordinator at MAR, as well as the producer of our free webinar series. Our webinar today is Your Safety is Non-Negotiable, the Beverly Carter story. This webinar will cover the dangers of work in real estate while also discussing ways of helping others protect themselves and top safety practices. After our live session, the webinar will be recorded and added to our website at marealtor.com. If you have any questions throughout this session, please type them in your chat box on your screen and we will hold a Q&A afterward. Our presenter today is Carl Carter Jr. Carl is a realtor and the founder of the Beverly Carter Foundation, a non-for-profit dedicated to improving agent safety. His mom, realtor Beverly Carter, lost her life at the hands of two clients in 2014. Since his mother's passing, Carl has dedicated as much time as possible to spreading the message of safety. He also has a Master and Bachelor of Business Administration degrees from the University of Arkansas in Little Rock, Arkansas. Carl is a certified Franklin Covey facilitator, a DDI certified facilitator, and an Achieve Global educator. Now, over to Carl.
Good morning, everyone. So honored to be with you this morning. Coming to you all the way from central Arkansas, where here for the first day of fall, it is definitely fall-like weather, chilly and raining. But what an honor for me to be able to share with you that sweet lady that you see there on the screen. That is my precious mom, Beverly Carter. And as emotional and as tough as it is for me to tell this story of how we lost my mom, I do so because I think that it's an important story and a story that we can all learn from. As I share her story, my hope is that you would get some ideas, hopefully get empowered, maybe a little inspired to make positive changes to your personal safety strategy. Please know that it's very important to me that no one walks away from this webinar with a spirit of fear or paranoia, because that not only do I not want that, but that would not honor my sweet mom. This is certainly about empowerment, not about spreading fear. So without further ado, I'd love to tell you to start by telling you a little bit personally about my precious mom. My mom, at the time that she was taken from us, she was 50 years old. She had been married to my dad for almost 34 years. And so if you're doing that math, you'll quickly realize that my parents were high school sweethearts and were married at a very young age. They had me at a very young age. My mom was 16 when she had me, and later had my two brothers. And as much as my mom enjoyed being a mom and loved being a realtor, her favorite role was undoubtedly being beloved grandma to my kids, my brother's kids. And as we begin today, I want to kind of address this uncomfortable truth that we all need to face this morning. And that is that my mom was targeted for reasons that unfortunately apply to all of us. It was a husband and wife that targeted my mom, and there was no personal relationship. They did not know her. She had never met them. But what my mom was up against was that these two, bad guys, as I call them, this husband and wife, they perceived my mom to be rich. And so they devised a plan to get her, a loan, which is easy to do with our industry because we work alone often. And their plan would be that they would kidnap her, hold her for ransom, and get my dad to deliver all of this ransom money. And, as much as I know that my parents probably wouldn't like me kind of airing their personal finances, but I really want to make the point that, at the time that my mom was taken, she'd taken a little bit of time off of real estate, was kind of getting back into it. And so there was kind of a lull in those commission checks that was coming in. And while she had at times, great success in the industry, that at the time she was taken, that was not necessarily the case. And so to tell you a little bit about what fueled this perspective, this perception that she was so rich, truly was just publicly available information. When the investigators, the detectives, got a search warrant and went into the home of these bad people and retrieved their laptop, evidence was found on that laptop that they had done a number of internet searches on my mom. And, as you know, if you ever heard any safety presentation, we're always, encouraged to do our, due diligence to search out as best we can new clients so that we can, further verify who they are and hopefully discern, perhaps their intentions. And it's eerie to know that these bad people that walk among us, that they could use those same tools against us. And they had certainly done that with my precious mom. They had Googled her just to see what they could find. They needed to verify that, one, that she was married and that there was a husband that could deliver this ransom money. And then next, they found that this couple had gone to my mom's Facebook profile. And mom's profile, just like mine is, and many of us on this webinar today, our profiles are public because we like to be, accessible to the communities that we have, the opportunity to serve. And then lastly, and I think probably most, concerningly to me, is that the bad guys knew to go to online county property records, and they knew to search for my mom's name and to identify where she lived and the property value of the home that she lived in. And so, as eerie as all that is, I think it really makes the point that, these things were used against my mom, and we can use these same tools to try to discern, as much we can about who we are working with. So lastly, the point that I want to make here simply after all that explanation is just that because we have that R behind our names, because we are realtors, there is a public perception that we are wildly rich, regardless of how many transactions you're closing each year. And we see this, as evidenced by the fact that real estate schools are packed at all times because everyone wants to get into this business because they're going to be, richer, than they can possibly imagine, and and have that flexible work schedule. And I certainly hope that that is the case for everyone on this webinar this morning, but that has not yet been my experience. My mom was one of those realtors that made the job look easy, and I am realizing that it is a tough, tough industry at times. As we go through my mom's story this morning, of course, this is Realtor Safety Month, and I hope that this month has been a time, and if not yet, then now can be a time of just kind of contemplation and reflection and thinking about the way you do things, and maybe assessing if you've gotten a little complacent with some of your personal safety strategies. This month is actually 6 years, so not only is it Realtor Safety Month, but it's also the anniversary of my mom's kidnapping and murder. I'll be on this slide for a little while because I'd like to talk you through the events that led to this showing where my mom was kidnapped. This is the home where my mom was taken from us. And if you didn't know the context of this training or, what I just said, I think this slide could just as easily be a part of, any real estate presentation ever, right? You've got this exterior home shot, you've got a street address, you've got a property description, kind of business as usual. And, I did that somewhat intentionally because it's my hope to impart that after a decade in the industry, after having, the privilege of serving hundreds of clients through the years and showing undoubtedly thousands of properties and being so good and loving her job so much, all it took was, one set of this one client and one showing, and it was all over. I lost my best friend. I lost my mom. Our family lost our matriarch. But if I may back up and tell you the events that led to this showing, and I'd really like for you, if you can, to, as I tell this story, kind of put yourself in the situation. So imagine that today you begin getting phone calls, text, and emails from new clients. And so they're letting you know that they want to buy a property. They're relocating to your area from out of state due to work, a job opportunity. They're already in your area, but they are in a temporary housing situation that they're just not pleased with. They really hope that you can help them get into a permanent residence as soon as possible. And, kind of as an added, maybe bonus is that they anticipate the process will go quickly because they are cash buyers. And again, as you interact with both husband and wife, you're doing so via phone calls and text, and that area code of the number that they're calling you and texting you from actually matches the state that they say that they're moving from. And then the email addresses they've given you to not only email back and forth with, but to also do things like we always do. We put it into the MLS so they can get alerts for new properties hitting the market. But that email address, the names used in the address itself actually match that of the names that you've been given. So you begin uh, and I'll tell you what my mom did, which is great professionalism and good safety measure, is that for every client, she used a client profile sheet. And, this gave her, kind of the assurance that she was asking all of her clients the same questions. And it served as a good point of documentation that she could refer back to as she sought to find a home that met their needs. And so my mom had this paper folder that she kept on every client with this client profile sheet, but she was having trouble finding them properties that they were interested in. They were kind of dismissive of the properties that she had sent them. And so she began doing like we're all doing, and my goodness, if your market is like it is down here, it's crazy. And so we're constantly talking to other agents about inquiring if other or new properties are about to hit the market, because we're working with a client that really that has a sense of urgency. And so, it was quite a challenge for the investigators, because as they began to ask questions during mom's disappearance, of other agents in her office, this story kept bubbling back up to the top that mom was working with out-of-state buyers, and she kept inquiring about, properties that may be hitting the market soon. And it was almost as though every agent in the office, mom had tried so hard to find them a home, that every agent almost had their own kind of spin on the story, their own experience with talking to mom about it. And so, I always joke, that kind of, God help, God love the people that are married and partnered to real estate agents, because whether they want to or not, they get to hear the ups and downs and ins and outs of every transaction that we work on. And, my dad was no different. My dad was very in the know about everything that I just told you related to this couple. And so everything, is seemingly good. Our only, surface level issue so far is that, we're having trouble finding a home that they're interested in. But I want to point out that through this process of all this back and forth and the emails and the texts and the calls, there has been no in-person pre-showing buyer consultation. There has been no exchange of ID. And so there has been nothing to expose the fact that everything that I just told you, which was everything that had been presented to my mom, was a lie. It had been completely made up. And my mom had no idea that as she interacted with that out-of-state phone number, that it was actually a spoof number that had been provided to these bad guys by a smartphone app that they had downloaded. And she had no idea. And of course, I think we all need to be reminded this morning, not only that that type of technology exists, but also because we're not all in the practice of, it's not every day or even once a year that we create email accounts. But if you think back to when you created yours, it didn't take long at all, and you could use any name you wanted, and you set your own email address. So just be reminded, please, this morning that a telephone number does nothing. The number in and of itself, the structure of the number, the area code, does nothing to validate who a person is. And then, of course, neither does an email address. My mom had no idea that these people were never from out of state. They were always from right across town. My mom had no idea that everything was a lie and that the husband of this couple was a 7-time felon. But if I may pause the story for just a moment, I want to tell you about this particular property because my mom had a kind of a very good understanding of this property. And so a couple of things about this that, because people talk so much about situational awareness, and I think that based upon, our comfortability with an area or maybe more than comfortability, just a familiarity with an area can maybe put us more at ease. And so to that point, this particular house is located in the community that my parents lived in. It's a little hard to tell by this photo that you see on the screen, but this is lakefront property. My parents lived on the same lake. Any given weekend, we would be out on this lake, and I remember kind of, growing up and seeing this property, at least from the backside from the lake. But so to that point of it being a familiar, sweet, one would even say, safe, nice neighborhood. Just a few doors down from this particular house is where the pastor of my mom's church lives. I think that all kind of lends itself to maybe feeling more at ease with this property. However, my mom also knew, and quite frankly, I even knew that this house had been vacant for many, many years. This is a foreclosed, bank-owned property that had a long history of neglect and abuse. There had been issues of squatters throughout the years. The yard hadn't been touched in forever, so there's this knee-high grass and weeds. And as part of the squatters and others that had gotten into this property on the inside, it was a complete mess because people throughout the years had gotten in and vandalized the home and stolen things of value, like from light fixtures to faucets, even down to some of the copper wiring. So we got a couple things going on here. We know that it's a safe, familiar neighborhood in our own community, but yet we know that also, given what we know about this couple and their desire to get into a home as quick as possible, that we know that this house on the inside is a mess. And this is a true fixer-upper, and it's going to take a while to be able to get into it. So we know that my mom knew those things. However, it was the couple, it was the husband of the couple that called my mom to inquire about seeing this property. We now know that the reason why he chose this property is because it did sit on a large half-acre lot. There were neighbors, but they were, a decent distance away. And because of the state of this home, we know that it was also chosen because it would be highly unlikely for anyone to be around or to be following up behind. Another quick safety point that I'll make too, and this is about the importance of real estate photography. You hear us talk, people talk about real estate photography's role in safety is, not highlight, make sure you highlight a home, not highlighting, valuables in the home. Uh, but also the importance of accurately reflecting the state that a home is in. So unfortunately, this particular property had this photo, which is a nice photo of the exterior of this house back whenever it was, taken care of. But then there weren't very many other photos, and the ones that were out there were very dimly lit, awful photos that really didn't show the state of this home. And so when the husband called my mom, and we know about how this conversation went, we know about it through the bad guy, through the husband. It came out during the interrogation process. And we know that whenever he called and he asked my mom to see this property, that she, in his words, did not want to show the property. He said that in that conversation that my mom made up, well, he didn't say made up. He said that my mom cited a company policy that said she was sorry, but she could not show property in a rural area alone. And so we know that my mom actually made that up, which is a great strategy. For whatever reason, she did not want to show this home to him. And that could have been because maybe her instincts were going off, that something just sounded off with this guy. Maybe that plus she, knew that because of the state of this home that it was a waste of time. While we may never know her true intent behind making up that policy, we know that it was a good, it's something that we can learn from. Because for whatever reason, she didn't feel, or that confrontation, however that call was going, she didn't have, that was her method of expressing, of, objecting to showing the property. But here is something else that we can learn from my mom. And that is, what then do you do when during that conversation, the husband hands the phone to his wife and the wife tells you that she will be on the showing as well. She will be coming separately and straight from work. And then you're put on the spot and you're asked, would your company be okay for the three of you to be at the property? And this is really the part of the story when I'm telling it in person. And my goodness, I wish that we all were together this morning. But this is the part of the story that we just kind of pause and we just kind of look around, and people, there's this realization for so many agents that they would have gone ahead and scheduled this showing just like my mom did, because of a comfort that came with a wife being involved. I'll tell on myself here, and I won't put anyone else in it, but there is this, I think for many people, when they are thinking through what a scary situation looks like, or what a situation that has the most risk for violent crime looks like, it typically, for many people, self included, before this happened to my mom, is not a situation that involves a woman. And I think for many agents, that would have kind of, let the guard down, that this was safe and fine. And so my mom, another good safety tip, because this home had been vacant for so long and just, in this awful state, there were no utilities. And so mom encouraged them to make sure that they didn't set the appointment any later than 6 p.m. because they needed to show the house in the daylight. And so the day comes, and keep in mind, there still has been no in-person buyer consultation. There has been no exchange of ID. There's just been a lot of communication back and forth over multiple days. And so the day comes, it's Thursday, September 25th at 6 p.m. is to be the showing. My mom has such a typical real estate day, pre-COVID, I should say. She worked in her brokerage for the morning. She went to an affiliate luncheon. She won $50 at a raffle in that luncheon. And then as she gets back to the office and she's thinking about, kind of what the rest of her day looks like, she calls my dad, which is another good safety tip. She calls dad to say, hey, this is what the rest of my day looks like. I will be, that couple that's in from out of, that moved in from out of state. I, I'm going to show that house across the lake. So dad knew exactly which house to them. And then I'll take this $50 that I won today in this raffle and I'll pick up dinner for us and I'll see you at home later. So good safety tip in letting someone know exactly where you will be. 6 o'clock comes and my mom's had gotten to this property early. She had already opened this property, and there's lots of safety messages and professionalism in getting to the properties early, especially those that we know there've been a history of issues. But at 6 o'clock, a black car pulls up and a young Caucasian male with short dark hair gets out of the vehicle and approaches my mom. And we don't know which came first, if it was the husband being there in person or if it was text messages from the wife. But we know that both were saying the same thing. So my mom had started getting these texts from the wife with apologies that she had gotten caught up at work and wasn't going to be able to make it to the showing. And then had a follow-up kind of favor of my mom. If my mom would be so kind to please proceed with showing the husband the house. And also, while she did that, would she please take photographs of the interior of this house and text them to her through that, unknowingly through that spoof number, and answer any questions she might have. And it would be as though the wife was there on the showing, if not in person, at least, digitally. And as the husband got there and was, greeted, and my mom was so sweet, y'all. Like I know she had such warmth and kindness that day whenever she greeted that man, having no idea what his intentions were that day. But he approached my mom and his story matched that of the wife, that she had gotten caught up. And would mom be so kind as to go ahead, proceed with the showing, take the photographs, answer questions. And so, it's at this point of the story, this is the last, this has been a process, right? There have been a lot of decisions along the way. And this is really the last moment for a safer decision to be made. Please know this isn't victim blaming at all. I love my mama, and I think she did everything right. We can learn from it, and we can prevent this from happening again. But when faced with this challenge, this plan that's different than what had been agreed to, undoubtedly my mom, whether quickly or not, or even subconsciously, she had to quickly weigh, logically what was happening, and statistics, I think logic gets in the way, and we know that, you've been in the business for so long and everything has been so safe. What is just this one more showing? And then how often have we all found ourselves in situations where maybe our instinct is going off, but we override that instinct because we don't want to appear rude or weak or unprofessional. And so for whatever the reason, even just, it could be as simple as my mom was just very kind, and she chose to show the property that day. And at the conclusion of the trial, we got back my mom's cell phone, and eerily to see, the last 10 photos of my mom's camera roll were of the interior of this house. And my mom had no idea that as she was taking these photos and texting them to the wife and answering this wife's bogus questions, that really all these bad guys were trying to do was keep her in the showing, keep her distracted. And that photo that you see, this awkward photo on the bottom right of the screen now, um, this is the last photo that we found on my mom's camera roll when we got it back after the trial. This was the last moment of my mom's freedom. It was right around this time that the bad guy, and he's been very proud to admit this, that the last words that my mom heard in her freedom as a taser was put in her side from behind, she was caught off guard, was that she was about to have a very bad day. And this awful man, he tased my sweet mom, and he had the most ridiculous lime green duct tape, and he bound my mom with that tape. He then went outside and got in his car and turned it around and backed it up to this house and opened the trunk. And I tell you some of these details for a very specific reason. And this safety message really applies so much broader than real estate. But everything that I told you about at 6 o'clock, a black car arriving, a young Caucasian male with dark hair getting out and greeting my mom, going into the home with my mom, and moments later coming out, getting in his car, turning it around and backing it up to the house and opening the trunk. I know those things occurred because every bit of that was witnessed firsthand by the next door neighbor. However, it wasn't reported to authorities until much later that night when detectives were door knocking and asking the neighbors if they knew anything or had seen anything because a local real estate agent was missing. And so I think the point here, and I hope that you will, share this part of the story with, or at least the message with your family over dinner tonight. And it's the importance of, if we see something off, something weird, something suspicious, that in that moment we report it to the authorities. I don't know if it could have changed the outcome with my mom, but who knows? Because it, instead of being reported in the moment, it actually didn't come out, wasn't known until 4 or 5 hours after this appointment. And due to COVID and the fact that we're all home now more than ever, we should have the strongest baseline of what normal, regular, safe, activity for our neighborhoods look like. So when something's off, it really should stand out more than it probably ever has. That bad guy took my sweet mom and put her in the trunk of that car. And as if it wasn't bad enough that he was doing that, before he closed the lid on the trunk of that car, he took out his cell phone and he took a picture of my mom and he texted to his wife. And we can only assume that he was texting that to his wife to let her know that, to show her that this master plan of kidnapping this rich realtor to hold her for ransom was in play. And to tell you a little bit more about that plan in and of itself, was that they would kidnap mom. They would make her do a series of videos telling my dad how to deliver the ransom money. They would text those photos, or excuse me, those videos to my dad using that spoof number. And, based upon their perception of my mom, and I told you what their perception was based on, just some online searching, they perceived my mom to be so rich, and this is their words, that they would get enough ransom money that they would never have to work again, which is truly laughable and so wrong. They had her pegged just so wrong. A major part of this plan, though, was that they would have my mom tell my dad to move all of this perceived wealth to accounts that were accessible via the credit cards that were in my mom's purse. And, you ladies on the webinar this morning can attest, most ladies that I've talked to about safety have their own, as part of their personal safety strategy, have a plan for their purses while they're showing property. And so my mom's personal strategy was that she left it locked in her car every time she showed property. And that day was no different. And so in his haste to kidnap my precious mom and put her in the trunk of that car and take that photograph and drive away, he didn't realize that he had left behind the one thing that he needed to be able to access her perceived wealth. He had left the purse behind. And so from the second he drove off that day, the plan was already ruined. We all ended up at that property that night. We knew exactly where to go, of course, because mom had told dad where she'd be showing property. And so as we arrived, of course, dad arrived first and he found mom's car there. After going back home and getting her second set of keys and opening the vehicle, we found that client folder that had all of these, who she was working with, although everything that had been documented was a lie. And then, of course, we found my precious mom's purse. Way late into the evening, we began, after, all these detectives were on the scene and so much confusion and worry, as you can imagine. My dad begins, and this is a screenshot of my dad's phone. He begins getting text messages from my mom. And so this is, as you can see, this is a little over 6 hours after that appointment. And as you can imagine, like, we were so excited and relieved. And we had no idea until that third text came in that something bad had happened. My mom, I know you guys didn't know her, but she was not a drinker, and she certainly would not have ever been out at midnight. And if she were out at midnight, my dad would have been right with her. But so many things about that last text were out, just so wildly out of character. And so what this text thread actually did was, it was the bad guy himself. That night, he had come back to the scene of the crime to retrieve my mom's purse so that he could go forward with his plan. And to his surprise, to his shock, there were cops everywhere. Our family was there, and he was unable to do so. And so he got away from there after being actually questioned by a detective about his knowledge of the disappearance of my mom. And he turned on my mom's phone and began, uh, you know, trying to throw everyone off by buying himself some time. When in fact, all he did, because that last text was so out of character, is that he truly confirmed that not only did someone take my mom, but they were bold enough to pretend to be her. This timeline, I told you guys earlier, this is 6 years ago. This is what an eternity looks like. This is the timeline that my mom was missing. My mom's body was found the early morning hours of September 30th. Although, as you can imagine, this truly represents some of the darkest days of my life, it also represents my love and our family's love and appreciation for the real estate industry, because it was during this time that real estate agents filled these fields searching for my mom, that real estate agents took to the internet, many participated in interviews, and we really rallied as a real estate family to try to find my mom. And after my mom had been found murdered, it was a real estate family that kept so much pressure on local law enforcement to find the bad guys, and later for there to be justice. So please know how grateful our family is for the support of our realtor family. We'll never know, exactly what it was like for my mom during those terrifying moments of being kidnapped. But we do know that my mom was made to do a video of that was never delivered to my dad. It was the first of what would have been a series of videos. And so this video was, although it was never sent to my dad. It was just played as during the interrogation process as a bargaining tool. But in that video, my mom was encouraging my dad not to call the cops. But I think most importantly, at the end of that video, she told my dad what you see here on the screen, that she just wanted him to know that how much she loved him. We know that evidence was found in the trunk of that car that my mom got her hands free, and so therefore she was fighting for her freedom. And then we know that night when the husband had left my mom locked in the bathroom of this bad couple in their home. He had left his wife with a firearm to guard the bathroom door as my mom was being held there as their prisoner. While he came back to get the purse, that we know that during that time, the wife testified that she never interacted with my mom, but she had to sit there as she guarded that door and listen to the sounds of my mom's prayers. So, I know there's not a lot of safety message in it, but it sure is inspiring for me to know that in the final darkest days, my mom was still so full of love and fight. And, maybe perhaps most importantly, right to the very end, my mom kept her faith. When the husband returned back home that night after seeing all the cops on the scene, it's like those blue lights provided a moment of clarity that this whole plan was ridiculous and that would never work. And so they decided that they wanted to just take what my mom had on her person of value and just get rid of her, to murder her and hide her body and to pretend like this never happened. And so this spot that you see here on the screen is where my mom took her last breath. Through amazing detective work, uh, my precious mom was found. The bad guys were found. The bad guys went to trial. The wife is in prison. She took a plea deal, so in exchange for her testimony, she got a 30-year sentence with the possibility of parole once she has served 21 years. The husband is in prison forever. He has 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole for capital murder and for kidnapping. A few takeaways from my mom's story. No, it's an emotional story and it's hard to hear. Trust me, it is hard to tell. That just please remember, from my mom's story, that bad guys fit no definable profile. They come in all shapes and sizes and genders. I hope that you will be more consistent and make in-person buyer consultations a part of the services that you offer and insist upon. I hope you get ID, you have a good, secure process for that. I hope you use the internet. I hope you share your itinerary and location. I hope that you try to automate some of that using, these great features that we have on our smartphones that so few of us actually enable. I hope you think of my mom the next time your instincts start going off and you feel empowered to get out of situations that make you feel uncomfortable. I hope that you'll think of my mom and how she was taken by surprise, and trust, and keep your clients in front of you as you go through showings. And of course, just as we learned with that neighbor, I hope that you will report suspicious activities to the authorities immediately. After this session, it would be so amazing if you could be a part of raising safety awareness in our industry. I hope that you will keep the conversation going. We have available on our website, which is beverlycarterfoundation.org, the safety pledge, which is great for you to pull down, or you could pull it down and make copies, or pull it down and email it to your colleagues. This is nothing that you sign and turn in. It's just it's you know what a pledge is. It's just a written contract that you do with yourself. You kind of shake off the complacency that maybe has crept in over the past few months. Since losing mom and sharing her story, I've heard the stories of many other agents that have been victimized, from assault to theft of property to stalking. I've met agents that have been raped while showing property, and it really put a fire in my belly to create this nonprofit, to serve our industry so that we can hopefully inspire positive change to improve safety outcomes. And of course, as I always say, we never ever want to see what happened to my mom ever happen again. There are additional resources through, not only through the Beverly Carter Foundation, but this month the CE Shop is offering their safety class for free. They have great agent safety resources on their site that you don't have to pay for at any time. And then, of course, NAR continues to build out their training library, and it just keeps getting better and better all the time. Been very honored to be a part of that growth this year. The last slide I'll end with, and of course, we'll take any questions that you may have. These are my kiddos as they looked 6 years ago. I'm a distance runner, and my kids used to love to run with me. And so this picture was taken 1 week to the day prior to losing my mom. And we took this photo and sent it to her, and of course she loved it. And you see here my email address. I welcome anyone to reach out to me if I can ever be a resource for you. I would be honored to help you in any way. And if you'll just allow me, maybe it's a little cheesy, but just to make this photograph symbolic of you and your real estate journey. If we can make that my mom's for sale sign that you see there representative of you, your career in real estate, your commitment to real estate and being excellent at it. I just hope in some small way that my words this morning, the story of my precious, precious mom, have made you more mindful of the people on the periphery of your career, your family, your friends, your loved ones that so desperately need you to come home safely each and every day. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and we'll take any questions that anyone may have now.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Carl, for sharing your story with us today. And to everybody listening, if you have any questions, now's the time to write them in your chat box. It looks like we don't really have any questions right now. We just have a couple of comments. I think everyone's just really stunned by your incredible story. But I can read a couple of the comments. So Elise says, thank you so very much for retelling these difficult moments. They've been sad and shocking and so beautifully presented. A jolt to action. Many kindness to you and your family. Deborah says, God bless you and your family. Stacy says she was moved by your story. Heidi has a question. What would be a good tracking app?
So what I do, it just at a base level, what I do with my wife is that we both have iPhones, and of course you could do this with Androids as well, but just to go in and turn on location sharing and turn it on to where it's always on. And so she knows that if I'm doing real estate and she just wants to see where I am, she can just get in on my contacts. She can see where I am. Maybe I'm not answering my phone. And then moreover, like her career is that she's a hairdresser. So, there are just times that she's not able to get to her phone, and so I can just quickly, click on her to see, is she at the salon? And then that lets me know, okay, she's at the salon. She's not responding because she's doing, making someone beautiful. But even more than that, we have another layer that we use. We use an app called Life 360. There's a free version of it and there's a paid version. We do the paid version, which is $100 a year, and it provides that same, it's like that level of tracking on steroids, because we have teenagers, and it tells me where my kids are at all times, and it tells me like if they're driving, when they finished driving, how fast they went, where they went. So it's a great app. And thank God they didn't have that technology when we were teenagers, because my kids are on lockdown.
Yeah, I keep my location on my phone at all times. I share it with my family, so they always know where I am and what I'm doing. We have another comment from Jane. She said, thank you so much for sharing your mom's story. Stay safe. Deborah says, my heart goes out to you and your family. Thank you for sharing your story. Catherine says, hi, Carl. That was so moving. Thank you so much for turning a tragedy into something positive. Local police departments nationwide offer free rape aggression defense classes for women. She said she took it and learned so much. It may be a great resource to augment your NAR efforts.
I love that. Thank you. Yes.
Joellen says, thank you for having the strength and courage to share your family story with us today. We're truly grateful. Carl, if you want to go back to that slide to show where they can give to the Beverly Carter Foundation.
Absolutely. So you can, if you, I do hope that you'll consider us with your charitable giving. So you can through our website, um, which is beverlycarter.org, or you can through this text feature. Yeah, thank you very much for your consideration there.
Great, and that looks like that's all the questions and comments we have for the day. As a reminder to everyone, this webinar has been recorded and will be available to view in the next few days on our website at marealtor.com. And thank you so much, Carl, for your presentation and your story. We really, really appreciate it. And we thank everyone for joining today. So we hope to see you next time.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Stay safe.